So I feel like I don't know, had always like looked at myself as like like a good person, a good guy, hopefully like a halfway decent role model and whatever. And I was kind of going down this path where, I was just like kind of partying a lot and I would get off work and then I'd have 48 hours off like to do whatever.
Yeah.
And then so I feel like I would at least like work out and go to the gym and whatever, but then I'd like play video games and party and like that was like all I did. I ended up cheating on my girlfriend and it I don't know, it was just like it felt like rock bottom. I felt so terrible about it and I was like I now like I need to take those right steps to be that man that I thought that I was, but I wasn't following,
Sure.
I wasn't taking the actions that Ted that I thought I was, would do. I was like, all right, I got to be a better man and I got to find my purpose and like I got to like try to be the best Ted that I can be.
Ted, welcome to the show, man.
Karl, thank you, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's an honor, man. I gotta say, before we get moving, I love the stash, man. Love it.
Thank you. It actually survives off compliments, so that's huge.
It honestly reminds me of the movie Super Troopers. And every time when I say it, look at him like, who wants a mustache ride? Right? And this is where you say, I do.
Yep, I get that all the time.
I can imagine, man. I can imagine. Well, awesome, man. Well, let's get cranking. Looking at your profile, looking at your dossier. By day, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're a full-time firefighter. You deal with real life and death. And by all means, before I get further, thank you for your service. I think that's probably one of the dangerous jobs that you can do on the planet. One of the most dangerous, and I can resonate with that to some degree. I've had family that were, in the fire department. So, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do, putting your life out there. So again, thank you. But by night, which is kind of really interesting, you're an arbitrage sports bettor. I hope I said that correctly. You're pulling in some some pretty cool numbers and beating the books, beating the odds. So to the average listener or watcher out there, that kind of sounds like oil and water, right? So give us an understanding, who you are and or who you are, and how do those two worlds coexist?
Yeah, so it's nice because I work 24 hours on at the firehouse, and then I have 48 hours off, and so I've always had this like time to pursue something, which has really helped me, take that time to figure something out. And I started, I met you through Amazon. I was doing Amazon FBA for about almost 3 years, and eventually decided it wasn't for me. But I liked, generating the spend. I kind of got into like credit card, like travel hacking and stuff, maximizing all that spend with the credit cards. And then once I stopped with the Amazon, I was like, man, I really want something that I can generate spend on, and ended up meeting up with like a local group of like travel hackers, and
Nice.
one of them had brought up like, oh, that they'll like fund sports books with like gift cards that they buy with credit cards, and then they'll either do arbitrage bets or just like highly likely to win bets, so that they're like spending and getting it to go through, and then you can withdraw it, and that was credit card spend. At the same time, someone from the Facebook community that I was in got into this sports betting coaching program. And that's kind of when like those two worlds kind of collided, and I was like, this sounds awesome. So anywho, that's kind of how I got into it. And so I use this software that shows me all of the different odds on different sports books. And you can make, like, arbitrage betting is making both sides, taking both sides of the same bet. And there's an inefficiency in the market where the odds are different, the payouts are different, so you can guarantee yourself a profit if you just bet both sides on two different books where the odds are favorable.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I guess I balance my life.
That's cool, man. That's interesting. And I'm because my family, or part of my family, like my grandfather and a few other family members, they were also in the fire department. And in fact, in our own ecosystem, we've got some firefighters, or they used to be firefighters, and they're constantly talking about doing things in their off time, right? And whether it's being a real estate agent or building, some type of business. So it's cool that you found some things you can build. And I definitely want to dive into more of this system, this process, because I have been watching you from the sidelines. And like you said, I've known you but I've known of you and watched your journey on Facebook and watched the pivots that you've made. And I gotta tell you, man, outside looking in, not knowing a whole lot of details, which we'll cover in a minute, but it's been inspirational, man, because you outside looking in, you have not given up, right? And I love that you put it into your profile. It's like you refuse to quit, you refuse to give up the story. Essentially, you just pivoted, right? And so, we're definitely going to dive into more of this process and so forth. But let me ask you this. In your full-time job, in your 9 to 5, although it's not 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
Walk me through what inspired you, because I would love to know this. What inspired you to be a firefighter? Was that something you dreamed of as an 8-year-old, or help me understand?
So it's not really something I dreamed of. I always thought it was like cool, but I went to Indiana University, and go Hoosiers, by the way.
Oh, we had to go there.
Had to.
I hear you, man, bro. What an amazing year for him, man. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it was incredible. But no, so like I was trying to make things work. I studied informatics. I ended up following a girl up to Chicago and tried to make it work up there. And a couple like crazy things happened where I got fired from the job that I was at and kicked out of the place I was living in within 3 days of each other.
Oh, wow.
And that happened to be in the middle of the 2-week period that the fire department was hiring in person in Indianapolis. And I was trying to make it work in Chicago. And so I basically was like forced to move back home to Indy after that happened. And then, I wasn't planning on moving back, and I wanted to make, so like I might have not even applied had those things not happened. And so like I unexpectedly moved back, and then I was like, well, I should probably apply for this. And just kind of like, once I learned more about it, I was like, this sounds amazing. And I was like, I need to have this job.
Gotcha.
So I ended up getting hired on here. Yeah.
Makes sense, man. Yeah, it makes sense. This kind of goes along with something I said earlier on a call. Sometimes the best thing that never happened to you is the best thing that, or the best thing that never happened to you. Good Lord, I'm going to screw that up. Oh well. But
I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
there's like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
a blessing in disguise. So basically, it wasn't like you just watch Backdraft, right? And be like, oh, I want to be that guy. And, Kurt Russell, I think is his name, and go sign up to be a firefighter, and thinking you can just run on fire trucks and
Yeah.
do things, right? So, but yeah, sometimes those are blessings in disguise, and cool. I appreciate you sharing that. All right. You walk into burning buildings for a living. Inevitably, that is a grave risk, right? That's truly a real risk. And then you come home and risk capital on sports and betting. Does the stress of the firehouse or of that role, that job that you serve, make the fear or the losing of money feel smaller, or do you feel that there are two different kinds of fear?
I think there are two different kinds of fear. One, most of the time at the firehouse, it's not like we're getting fires every single day, but it's like, but when we do get a fire, when you do get in that, situation, it's a lot more adrenaline and just like, kind of just falling back on your training and just figuring stuff out, like in the moment, in the heat of the moment.
Pun intended, right?
Yeah. And so it's pretty different, even though I do get like a little adrenaline from the sports betting. But the good part is like I hedge all of my bets. So it's like, if I lose, I don't like truly lose. Because I do a little bit something different than just like straight up arbitrage betting. It's more like trying to lose out of international sports books, because if I lose out of them, I can get more deposit bonuses from them. And that's kind of how I like what I do. Kind of differs from all the other arbitrage bettors that you'll see post stuff. Which I don't know if that's big on your feed, but it's big on mine. But yeah, I would say it's definitely more like adrenaline and just trying to figure stuff out in the moment. On the fire ground, and then other than that, it's like I'm watching a game and I'm like hoping it can be really fun if your team, if the bet's going the way you want it to. Right. But sometimes I choose just not even to watch the game, because if it's not going the right way, then it's just like it's very hard for me to like not feel bad.
I can imagine.
And so it's been a real test on my like overall mood and keeping emotionally stable.
Makes sense.
So they're both different, but both exciting.
Yeah, I can understand that, right? I mean, when you're in the heat of things, following your pun there, right? I could definitely understand how it could be super exciting, because not only are you getting that dopamine hit of your win, right, on your team winning, but there's also the hidden reward, right? Things that you kind of alluded to, which we'll dive into more here in a moment, but all of the benefits that come with what you're doing, right? And so that's really interesting. And let's give the average listener, if you will, a moment of like, how some of this can translate, right? So in your role as a firefighter, you follow a very specific protocol, right? If you deviate any of these protocols, whether it's equipment, inspections, or how you dress, as simple as that may sound, but that's also very dire, right? There's a reason why there's boots and pants already on the ground, so all you got to do is put your feet in, pull up, right?
Yep.
If you deviate that protocol, people die, and it could be your fellow, firefighters, or it could be the people that you're rescuing. So coming from that environment, and then arbitrage betting, you follow a very specific system as well, right? Very specific set of protocols. And if you deviate, you lose cash. Not as grave, right? But you still lose cash. You know. So did your skill set, did your experience coming from the firefighting arena, right? You coming from a firefighter, did that experience train you for this business better? Like following systems, following protocol, did that translate into this?
I mean, I guess you could maybe say that. It's really like, it's not, like you said, it's not as dire. I mean, there are absolutely things that you want to, like, you know, make sure you're doing everything right, because most of the time the only way you screw up is human error, you know, with the bedding, you know, also with firefighting. But you know, a lot of the firefighting is like the preparation and the training beforehand, and then it's just execution in the moment, you know. Whereas like this is, it's really not that complicated. Like it's the sports betting. Like you don't even really need to know a whole lot about sports. It's really just learning the odds and then using the software. And so I don't know, maybe, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's like why I'm good at this. But
that makes sense. Well, let me ask you this in a different way, right? Because especially in today's times, man, there is this perceived success, or there's this perception that you have to go to school in order to be successful, right? And you know, this has been a discussion, you know, that I've been in, you know, well, there's been some heated discussions that I've been in, you know, with some loved ones and friends and so forth. And you know, I'm not a high school graduate. You know, I'm a good enough diploma graduate. You know, GED. You know, and you know, I did go to school, right? But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like I went to college right out of high school so I could be successful. I just did it to kill time while I was in the military. You know, but in your opinion, did you feel that maybe your experience as a firefighter, learning strict protocols, being disciplined, and following systems and so forth, do you feel that prepared you for business overall better than business school could have?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I could see it. I think that like question that you get asked, you know, if you feel like you need that like schooling or whatever, I think it all really depends on how you are like interacting with whatever the educational material is. Like,
true.
I feel like a lot of people in college, you know, they're just kind of doing it because it's kind of expected of them, and you know, they're probably not learning a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, unless you're like very specified field and like, you probably go into graduate school and whatever. But a lot of people don't know what they want to do. You know, they just kind of go get a degree in whatever they think is, you know, important or a viable option where you can make decent money. But I think more so that something that has kind of motivated me ever since getting on the fire department, like I ended up meeting this guy like right after I graduated recruit school, who was like an admin chief, and he was like,
interesting.
He was like, hey, congratulations for getting on the fire department, but you'll never be rich. Like he just like, you know, he said that. And I was like, yo, it's true. I mean, you're not going to get stupid rich off of, you know, fireman's salary. But just that, I remember that all the time. And I just like want to like, I don't know, prove him wrong. But I think the same goes for people that like don't have a formal education. You know, they probably want to prove other people wrong that like you don't need that very kind of generic education, especially nowadays. Like there's so many different ways to make money.
100%.
It's just like you just have to like find whatever it is that I guess plays to your strengths or interests you. And that's where switching from Amazon to this, I liked kind of sort of playing like the credit card game, but I also liked sports betting. I wasn't any good at it, but I was usually just like drinking with friends and making stupid parlays. And
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that.
But anyways, it's nice to like it's actually fun to like be involved in sports and like have some skin in the game and not feel like you're being irresponsible.
Makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks. I don't know
for...
if that answered the question, but
no. Yeah, 100%. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it is dependent on the skill and so forth. And you made a comment earlier, talking about what the fire chief, or I think it was something of that equivalent, had said to you about you'll never be rich, working here. And ironically, we in our mastermind that we have our weekly calls every Wednesday, and it was largely revolved around that concept. I'm sure maybe you haven't seen it, but there was a video that went viral between Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy, and that hit me hard because a previous chapter of my life, I could completely resonate with Alex. Grind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, Tony was coming from the perspective of be rich in a sense of spirit, be rich in a sense of fulfillment, being rich in the sense of fulfilling heart. Otherwise, if you're just going after money, you're gonna be poor with a big bank account, right?
Right.
And I'm of the belief that you've got to be rich in emotional fulfillment, be rich in spirit, rich in a way that you're happy. Not that things are not going wrong, right? That's just life. We're going to have storms. That's what prepares us for growth. I mean, you've had your fair share of storms, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. But we have to have those storms. For whatever reason, we have humans somehow like, oh, storms are bad. It's like, bro, that's part of it, man. So on a note of that, man, you are crushing it right now, right? Like I've been following your Facebook, your stories, the things you've been accomplishing. You're smashing it. But I want to go back to when you weren't, And in fact, in your guest profile, you mentioned a moment where you got lost in the sauce. And as I was reading through this, man, I can completely resonate with what you're saying. I think a lot of people listening and or watching right now can as well. So talk me through this moment. You weren't necessarily failing in business yet, right? But you said you felt that you were failing as a man. You mentioned about a period where you had infidelity, with your girlfriend, and that's a heavy admission, bro. So first off, massive kudos to you for having the courage to come out here and be willing to talk about that. And I could personally resonate with that. There was a period of my life where my hands were off the wheel. We can make a lot of excuses to why and so forth, but that's not the point. So take us to that moment, if you will. Why, of all moments of your entire life or any part of your life, why was that the wake-up call that forced you to look in a mirror, man?
So I feel like I don't know, had always like looked at myself as like a good person, a good guy, hopefully like a halfway decent role model and whatever. And I was kind of going down this path where, I was just like kind of partying a lot and I think it was on like kind of the reason why I was kind of just getting off the rails a little bit was because I felt like I wasn't working towards my like full potential, you know? Like I would get off work and then I'd have 48 hours off, like to do whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like I wasn't, I would at least like work out and go to the gym and whatever, but then I'd like play video games and party, and like that was like all I did. You know, I was still pretty young, but I was getting to that point. I was like now in my like late 20s, and I was like just kind of just getting swept off into that. Just let's have fun. And I still like to have fun, but
sure. I would hope so.
Yeah, obviously. But yeah, so I ended up cheating on my girlfriend, and it, I don't know, it was just like, it felt like rock bottom. I felt so terrible about it. You know, it was just like the worst like pain, and like, you know, I can only imagine the pain that she was going through, but like just like the fact that I did it, and it just like hurt so bad. And I was like, I now like I need to, you know, take those right steps to be that man that I thought that I was, but I wasn't following, you know, I wasn't taking the actions that Ted that I thought I was, you know, would do. And so I kind of just like, you know, I was like, all right, I got to be a better man, and I got to find my purpose, and like I got to like try to be the best Ted that I can be. And you know, that's when I got introduced to Jim Cockrum and the Amazon community, and it's like kind of something that I could like put that energy towards, like building a better life, and then also obviously treating my girlfriend better. And you know, we're engaged now, and we're doing good.
Congratulations, man! Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But
so she loves the stash as well.
Yes, yeah, and right, and she never liked it until I had it, apparently. But yeah, so
gotcha.
Yeah, that was kind of a big turning point.
I can imagine, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Just give me a sense, or you know, give us a sense. How long was that relationship? Was that, because I think that adds some context, right? I mean, was this a relationship of a couple of days, weeks, months, years? How long was that relationship? I'm sorry?
This was just a one-time thing. That she like kind of caught me, and you know, I was pretty drunk, but that doesn't make it okay. But it was just a painful, like, it was just a bad time, bad experience. And I felt like that was just all of the direction I was going. That was just everything catching up. I felt like in that moment. And it was like I really had to like look in the mirror and be like, what are you doing? So,
what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
But let me ask you.
I'm actually grateful for it.
Yeah, I can understand. You know, I can understand that for sure. I mean, a lot of what you're saying, I think a lot of young men, or a lot of men and or women, right? I mean, it's not exclusive to just men, but I think for us men too, especially if we're not, you know, if we didn't have the proper upbringing, if we didn't have the proper programming by our own parents of what an ideal marriage should look like. I know I didn't, and it's not an excuse, right? I'm not, you know, blaming my dad or my mom. At the end of the day, it may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility to change my actions, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, going back to the moment and again, I love what, you know, saying lost in the sauce, because I'm sure a lot of us, especially us dudes, especially in our younger days, when we don't have the environment of growth, right? Especially in, you know, in the military, dude. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of inspiration of wanting to do better, other than just say, hey, watch out, you know, watch your six, and, you know, watch for your brother next to you, right? That was about the only thing. What you do in your off time, as long as you don't get arrested, whatever. You just don't get caught, essentially, right?
Yeah.
But again, you mentioned, this period of infidelity was a result of getting lost in the sauce. And I like to approach a little bit of specifics to this. What were you actually chasing, if you recall? What were you actually chasing in that season that made you willing to burn your home life? When I say home life, that relationship or that period. What made you willing to do that?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was just lost and unsure. I was a little unsure about my relationship and in the future, and maybe that made me a little more reckless. But I also I didn't have that growth, like what you mentioned. Like I didn't have a journey or something that I was working on, and now ever since I've had that, I feel like that's so important for I guess, I mean, probably anyone's life, but I feel like especially young men's life or whatever, is to always be working on something, working on a better future and everything. It's I didn't really have that, and so I was just kind of partying and having fun, and I just kind of, I guess I sort of just slipped up and so I don't really know where I was trying to go.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
Being, just being reckless.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us can resonate that to some degree. Not really just having a path to follow, just reacting in the moment, right? Whether it's a young beautiful woman, or it's gambling, or it's drugs, or alcohol, or all the above. Unfortunately,
right.
I've seen individuals go all the above. Not that was an ideal option on the test, but that was the life they chose. So, but thankfully though, you learned, right, and you pivoted, and now again, outside looking in, it seems like you've been on a major growth spurt, if you will, in a sense of changing direction, pivoting. So I really want to take a few moments and really dial into that, because I think that's really inspirational, because a lot of people going through what you've gone through, right? A period of where you're lost in the sauce. You had some mistakes made in your business journey, which I would love to hear more about here in a moment. But you didn't give up, man. You picked up your pants and you kept charging forward. So that being said, so you fixed the personal life, right? You just talk about this journey of entrepreneurship. You dive in entrepreneurship. You pick Amazon, which I would say ideally. Which is a lot of ways same to what you're doing now, right? You're essentially, you're finding the gaps in the market for where you can get in low and then, sell high, essentially, right? So you're using the Amazon platform. You spent, what you said, 3 years grinding. Talk us through this moment, when Black Friday 2024 comes, Amazon, because you and I have been in the game, we can say some of these things, just not really, take it for granted that a lot of people don't know some of the language here. But Amazon essentially shuts off a lot of your listings. Are like, we don't think we could trust you enough to sell these products, so we're going to shut you off on a lot of inventory you've already bought and sent to us for you to make money on, right? So you send it to a prep center. You sent it to a prep center, right? And they throw away how much money? $15,000 of money, of products away. Walk us through the day you found out that $15,000. That's a lot of money, bro. I mean, You know, $1,500 is a lot of money. You know, $500 is a lot of money. But $15,000, dude, that's a lot of people's savings account. They worked lifetimes, or I say lifetimes, but years, decades for. But you lost that in a day. You know, it was sitting in a dumpster. Walk us through that moment, man, when you found out. Like, what were you feeling? What were some of your reactions? What were you thinking? You know, walk us through that moment, man, or that day.
Yeah, it was like, so I didn't find out until, I found out that I was gated I couldn't sell like 80% of my inventory like the Tuesday before Black Friday, which is like, that's one of the biggest weekends for Amazon sellers. And so that was already, a gut punch. And then they had sent it all to the return prep center that I had like recently stopped using. And but you got to change your return address in like 3 different spots on Amazon. And then after that I was like, well, there's not a whole lot I can do. Like I kept it in there for a while, hoping that I could like get ungated so I could sell it again. So I didn't just remove it right away. And then I got totally caught up in Q4 December of last year, and the only thing that I could sell anymore was Lululemon. And so I just hit the Lululemon bags like really hard.
Don't say this in front of my daughter, please. It would never make it to Amazon, bro. Just like me and Oreos, it would never make it to Amazon.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the only thing, like the only real like product brand or whatever that like had worked for me in the past that I wasn't restricted on anymore. And so I really focused on that. And then, the holidays, and basically I just like wasn't keeping track, or, I was expecting everything to be removed back to my house. But then, burn out after the December rush and then to the holidays, I just assumed it was going to show up, and eventually it didn't show up. I was like, all right, where the hell is this?
Yeah, really.
And then I finally reached out to the return prep center, and they're like, oh yeah, that was here, and it was here for like 3 weeks, and nobody claimed it. Even though they knew that it was my stuff, but I just wasn't a client with them anymore. And so they just threw it away, donated it, whatever they did. And so not only did I pay probably a couple thousand just to get it all removed from Amazon.
Yeah. Then
all of it gets just lost, destroyed, whatever. So I felt like that's when I kind of just gained a little bit of clarity that I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I didn't want to, it was too much risk with how Amazon just like, they can just control what you can sell. And so
it's their sandbox. Yeah,
exactly. So I kind of, right around that time, decided I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore, and kind of just started liquidating stuff. And then I found the sports betting. So
makes sense for sure. So let me spin on this for a second, because with I said almost $3,000 with 3 years invested in $15,000, right? Why was that the moment you decided? I think you gave a little hint, but I really want to pull a little bit more out of that, because you alluded to it. But why was that the moment you decided the roof is collapsing, right? Why not fight for it, right? Because this is the point where a lot of entrepreneurs would just either keep fighting and keep grinding and find ways to root out, right? Mm-hmm. But you decided to do something different. Why?
So I had also I was also in a book club with two of the people from your small group, Ryan
Small world.
Otwell and Matt Hassler, um, and yeah, we read a book called Essentialism,
Mm,
and one of the chapters was kind of talking about like, you know, every once in a while you got to kind of take a step back and like look at what you're doing and everything and really um, you know, just look at it and just ask yourself like, is this working, is this sustainable, is this whatever. And because I think another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs do is they will just keep doing something that's not necessarily working, and they might just
right?
get in more debt or more
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and that was something that I did. I just like kind of took like a little break and just really tried to like look at it instead of just being caught up in the day to day. You know, there's a million things to do all the time.
Hmm.
Um, like with that happening, the whole, you know, losing all that money, and just like just the complexity of the Amazon FBA business. And
Yeah.
some people do it and they do it well, and kudos to them.
Right.
I after all these like experiences and just like the results that I was getting, it was just like I don't see a sustainable future for me in this
Yeah.
business anymore, especially after not being able to sell like all the brands that were like the heart and soul of my business.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Well,
reading that
yeah.
book and really helped me decide that.
Yeah, I can understand that, man. Especially when, if I remember correctly, you said 80%, right? If 80% of your customers were essentially yanked out from underneath you, that will cripple any business, right? Not just a
Yeah,
business on Amazon. If somebody came into my companies, right, and 80% of my, customers, clients, and so forth walked away for whatever reason, bro, you and I would be having a different conversation, right? That would hurt a lot of companies, potentially even making them collapse, right?
hmm,
So it's definitely understandable, and I think any entrepreneur that's listening right now, or any builder founder, could definitely appreciate that situation, be able to assess emotions removed, right? Because a
hmm,
lot of times we get emotional about the situation. My God, I spent 3 years of
right,
my life. I've lost $15,000, right? And we allow our emotions to get into the mix, and we just don't know when to quit, right? Because
right,
entrepreneurs hate quitting because we look
hmm,
at that as weakness, right?
right,
But instead, right, you look to this through a different set of lens. I think you said this, but I know it's on your profile. You read this book, Essentialism, right? I think I said that correctly. Anything
yeah,
more than two syllables, I'm host. That's why I'm host with my last name. It's more than two syllables. But you read this and you realize quitting was actually a strength, right? So
hmm.
talk us through that point. How hard was it to kill your ego and admit that it wasn't necessarily business? Entrepreneurship was a dream that was dead, but maybe just this business, this Amazon dream that was dead. How hard was that to kill that and admit that?
It was it was hard because yeah, like you said, I don't want to feel like a quitter. You know, I'm like I feel like I'm on this entrepreneurial journey like for a lifetime. You know, it's like it's
Mm,
I enjoy the trying to build something, trying to make something work, learning,
yeah.
growing constantly, and that's what I mean. I was honestly relieved. You know, I was like, I was like, this is just it's not working. It's too much. Um, and so I was relieved, and I'm pretty sure at that point I had already like learned about um, I don't know if I had learned about the sports betting yet, but I just like I guess I was just confident that I would find something else. You know, I would find
Yeah.
something, um, and and then I just decided just to be grateful for the experience that I had, and
I love that.
I know a lot of people like Hormozy. You know, they're like it was my like fifth or 10th business, you know, that I made that finally took off or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like I learned so like pre-Amazon Ted versus post-Amazon Ted were like completely different people. Because you know, just like the good influences that I've met, like the people and the networking, and like all the self-help books and everything, like all of that just like accumulates, and you turn into this different person that's going to be much better suited to be successful at the next thing.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that you just brought up there, because you know, a lot of people will look at that chapter as a failure, right? But if I'm understanding it correctly, you looked at it as like, no, it's not a failure. I'm just taking the lessons learned, right? Lessons learned plus all the things that I've curated, all the skills, all the people I've networked with, and I'm just going to carry that over into my next business life, right? In my next season here. Instead of starting fresh, right? With no contacts, no knowledge of business, no, you know, experience in business. And, you know, especially with Amazon, I think that's a great, in my opinion, a great platform to learn the basics of business, right? With low risk. I say that with an asterisk, you know. But it is an excellent platform, and there's a lot of business out there, right? And to your point, there are no shortages of opportunities right now. There really is not. You know, with the involvement of internet now, with AI and everything else, man, there is no shortage of opportunities. Only a shortage of people who's willing to do the work, you know, to get after it, right? To just chase those. And that, if I'm understanding correctly, that's where you're like, I know I'm meant for this. I know I'm meant for entrepreneurship. This is my passion. It's just a matter of just finding the right thing, and if finding the right thing at the right time, and just locking down, right? Am I understanding correct? Is that a pretty good summary of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's shift, you know, to this new business, because I sense that you and feel that you're passionate about this. And outside looking in, I'm seeing like some amazing numbers, right? And so I definitely want you to talk about this. So let's get tactical for a moment. You shifted over to the sports, you know, betting arbitrage. You know, to the average person, right? When we hear betting, you get like, you know, a lot of people are cringing right now, you know, because when they hear betting, they think gambling, right? And I'm sure a lot of people are listening or watching have lost a lot of money, right? And with that, they think a lot of this has to do with luck, right? You're a systems guy, like you're a protocol guy. You have to follow protocols in your 9 to 5, used loosely, right? In your 9 to 5, and you have to follow protocol in this season, in this, you know. So evidently you don't rely on luck, right? So just real quickly explain the system. How are you using the mismatched odds, if I'm understanding correctly, to guarantee, I use the word guarantee, but for lack of what I was saying, guarantee a win. You know, for somebody out there who's not familiar with this, break it down to like, I'm a fifth grader, break it down for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I touched on it earlier, like what the way people actually can guarantee themselves a little bit of profit is when the odds are in such a way that allows that, and the software would tell you, hey, this is an opportunity. You can bet on, you know, the Seahawks to win at, you know, minus 120 odds, which means if you bet, what is it? The odds are, if you know anything about sports betting, then you know the minus number on the odds means that they're the favorite, because you're getting less money. So minus 120 would be if you bet $120, you would profit $100. Whereas say it's an underdog, if it was plus 120, then if you bet $100, you would profit $120 if it won. So that's kind of how odds work. And so say the plus number is higher than the negative number. So say it's plus 130 versus minus 120, you're going to guarantee yourself a profit if you bet both sides, one on the Seahawks and one on the Patriots, But so the software OddsJam aggregates all these different sports books and all the different odds of all the different games that are happening, and you can filter through and find specific sports, leagues, different size bets, like main market bets are your money line, which is just who's going to win, your spread, who's going to, the spread is, we don't do a whole lot with the spread most of the time, but it's not, if someone's giving you if one team is the underdog by 3.5, then they would be plus 3.5. And so they have to win. Ultimately, they get 3.5 points, but with those 3.5 points, they have to beat the other team. That's kind of how the spread works. And then there's the total. That's the other main market bet. But anyways, it's just got all these really nice features to where you can see the odds on all these different sports books, which allows you to find the arbitrage opportunities. And then so what's kind of different about what I do is we're more farming international sportsbook deposit bonuses, because so say I could get 100% cash bonus on a deposit. So say I deposit $500, they'll give me $500, and so now I have $1,000, $500 which is not mine. I just got it for free from the sportsbook. Now, there are terms on a lot of these bonuses where you have to play through that bonus 10 times. So I would have to play through maybe $5,000 or $10,000 worth of play betting before I can withdraw any of that. But the loophole to that is, so say I've got that $1,000, and I'm betting on the Patriots because I think they're going to lose, and they're the underdog for the Super Bowl. And so then I would bet maybe 100 or maybe 1,200 or so to properly hedge the bet on a different site, betting on the Seahawks. So if the Seahawks win, then most of that $1,000 just goes into that other sports book, and I have $500 that I didn't have before, and now I've lost out of that book, and they'll offer me another deposit bonus because I'm just losing, and they want to keep taking my money. They'll give me money just to try to take it back.
Yeah, right.
And so that's essentially what I do with several different sports books every day. So
that's interesting, man. I appreciate you sharing that. For the average person out there right now, that's listening and thinking through everything you just said, myself included. I hate to say I'm not a sports guy. I'm really not. I mean, I do follow, certain major events. It's like the college playoffs, and yeah, man, Indiana, man, what a killer year they had, right? I'm not a Roll Tide guy, but I did live in Alabama for 13 years, and I guess I'm a Roll Tide kind of guy until Saban left. But to the average person out there, that's thinking, it's man, this could be rather interesting, but I'm not a sports person, right? So you said, I know you and I have had this conversation. But you're like, bro, I don't do much research. Right? But to the average listener, the average person, myself included, that sounds a blend of crazy and or lazy, right? So defend that statement. I would love for you just to kind of reinforce, like, why is research actually the enemy of your system? I'd love to hear this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can listen to people on YouTube or whatever that they're called handicappers or cappers. Those are people that are giving you their picks or why they think this team's going to win, whatever, giving you their lock of the day or whatever. And, I do like listen to those people sometimes just to have a more well-rounded view of what's happening in these games, like who's injured, who's resting. Because sometimes I now have like enough sports knowledge where I'm like, oh, why are the odds like this? It's something must be off. And so I just want to like at least educate myself in that sometimes. Makes sense. All of that stuff is baked into the odds. So, what the odds makers are putting out there and then what all the people are betting on, that makes, the odds fluctuate. And all you really need to know is who's the underdog, who's the favorite, which is the odds. That's how the odds work. And so what is taught in like the coaching program that I took is how to read the odds and to bet on the underdogs, on the books that you're trying to lose out of. So sometimes if you do think you're all like knowledgeable about sports, sometimes you don't end up following that, and that can bite you in the ass because, like statistically, the favorites will win like 60 to 70% of the time if the odds are like plus 150 or more. And that's the kind of game we're playing. We're playing a statistics type of game, not I got a hunch or, I think I know what's going on, Yeah. And yeah, sometimes you do get lucky, but the system is really, really built for like you to not lose, because even if you do lose, you don't really lose because you've hedged all of your bets. It's just the money might not be going in the direction you want it to, but
makes sense.
But yeah, so it can be advantageous to not know anything about sports.
Yeah, I know you've told that to me separately. I'm like, that's intriguing. So thanks for sharing it, man. Because I know there are a lot of people out there that's listening or watching right now. They're like, man, this is intriguing. I don't have to, gamble away money to a platform that can shut my, 80% or 90% or worst off 100% of my business, right? So that's interesting. One thing you mentioned more than once is you invested in coaching, and share your personal opinion, if you will, the reason why you elected to do coaching instead of trying to do it all your own, right? Instead of going on YouTube and learn it and trial and error, what made you invest into coaching? Just curious.
I just once I really like made the decision that I like wanted to actually do this and do it right. I've invested in coaching before, and it was a game changer for me to have that guidance like in Amazon. And there are a lot of nuances with different sports books and like things that you need to be aware of to avoid getting shut down or like getting your bonuses cut off or whatever, limited. These are all things that like not only is it like videos and coaching and guidance, but it's also the community that is in this coaching program together. We have our own like Facebook group that you can learn so much just from the other people in the program. And stuff's always changing too. Like there could be changes where people will share those changes on the fly, so you can be updated on things. And I just knew it would be like I was already kind of trying to do it by myself, but with like as much free information as I could get from the guy who referred me to the program. Shout out to Ed Newman. who is also an Amazon guy, and you know, it's funny how that all works. Everything happens the way it's supposed to. I'm now a believer of that. So
yeah, absolutely. So if I understand correctly, man, what I'm hearing correctly is you saw the value of compressing that timeline, right? Compressing that timeline of like, instead of taking a year, 2 years to see some wins and start making money, you saw the value of compressing that down to like maybe a month or 2 or 3 to start winning and making that investment back and then some, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that, because oftentimes, you know, we look at investing in ourselves, and I'm of the belief, and I'm sure you would agree, especially, you know, with what you share on coaching and investing. Investing in yourself is the absolute most valuable investment you can place, right? It's not the stock market. It's not, gold and any of this. It's investing in yourself, the skills and the knowledge, and compressing that timeline. You know, I loved how you mentioned community, man. I'm of the belief, you know, in addition, you know, investing in yourself, is being surrounded by people who are on the same journey, who want to see you win, you're right, and to celebrate, encourage, support, because you know this as well as anybody else. Entrepreneurship will beat your ass, right? And it will keep you down if you allow it. So having a good support system to cheerlead you into hardships, or through hardships, through the fires, pun intended, right? Because we're all going to go through that. So having a coach, having a support system to push you through those fires, man, you got to have that. You know, whether it's in business, life, wherever. You know, so I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people are, you know, when it comes to coaching, well, I can do it myself on my own. Cool. How's that worked out for you so far? Right? And a lot of people are just not motivated enough to do it, you know, to take action on coaching and also too having a path forward. You know the proven path to take to execute, whereas, you know, you're just hoping and praying that this works, because you're just relying on a lot of YouTube videos or ChatGPT, which hallucinates, you know, and you can't even guarantee that. So appreciate you sharing that, man. Now let's dive into something I alluded to earlier that you mentioned. You know, there's the hidden value of this. You know, you mentioned using credit cards to build the bankroll, right? And you know, when I say credit cards, a lot of people, you know, especially the Dave Ramsey fans, are like, you know, they're cringing, right? And that scares people. That's bad debt, you know, at least to a lot of people. And so, to which I would agree, right? However, you do this strategically, right? So explain that for a moment. Explain this to the Dave Ramseyers, if that's a search a term, right? Of how you leverage this in such a way that you ensure that you don't end up in a situation with debt that you cannot pay.
Well, I mean, at least once I kind of like learned this system, it definitely helps to have more money in the system. So like, because say your bets don't go the right way, and you have all of this money in the bonus books, is what we call them, because those are the ones that we're trying to lose out of, so that we can get more bonuses. Because if you win too much and then you withdraw, they'll probably cut you off on bonuses. They're like, we're losing money on this guy, you know, cut him off. And then we've got our win into books. And those are the books that we usually have to bet more on, because they're the favorites. And so you get enough bets that don't go the right way, you know, you have to keep putting money into the system. And, you know, you're not like losing the money, because you're still hedging the bets. Eventually you might just have to withdraw from one of those books. And that's fine. You've withdrawn a bunch of money and you're fine. You might ruin the bonuses in that book, but I just had a rep call me yesterday from one of those books that I'm like 20K net positive on that book, and they called me and offered me bonuses again.
Nice.
So it's like they'll come back because I don't know. I guess they believe that you're not going to be profitable forever because most people aren't. But the more money that you can have to put into it, the more money you can. The more bets you can keep making to either get through your rollovers, which is what you need to play through before you can withdraw, or so you can just keep depositing and keep getting bonuses and keep hedging those bets. And so just the more money you have in it, the better. And so you can buy you can buy gift cards for these different domestic sports books. And with a credit card, which is, money that you don't have right now.
Yeah.
And then you have these gift cards that you can now put into the system. Sometimes you can just do a positive arbitrage bet and guarantee yourself a little bit of money, and then you have that money in the system, and that's great. Or you can do it so you can keep making your hedge bets and, keep moving forward, whether it's, getting, having the bets go the right way for you and you're losing out of those international books to where you can keep getting bonuses, or, you're at least being able to make more bets to get through your rollover so you can at least withdraw the money that you might have stuck in an international book. So either way, it's a good thing. And you can keep moving forward in this system. And, eventually, if you do have to withdraw, then boom, you've withdrawn, probably like $5, $10, $15, $20,000 that you now have. And you can then redeploy that money or pay off your credit card bills. Yeah. And then on top of that, you're getting points and miles and cash back, which is just another dream.
Yeah. That's where I was hoping you really uncover is the hidden benefit, right? In the sense of the points and travel hacks and so forth. Because like what a lot of people in the Amazon world would do is, man, they would rack up the crap ton of points. Getting all these cards that leverage that, right? So that's the other benefit to this is, man, you can rack up travel miles, points, and cashbacks, and so there's the hidden reward there too. So appreciate you sharing that. In this season in which you do, man, how important is it to keep yourself emotionally regulated? Keeping yourself where you don't allow your emotions to dictate your decisions. How important is that?
It's very, very important. Whether it's just staying sane or it's, making good decisions and continuing to trust the process and not trying to chase losses or start doing unhedged bets. Rarely do I do bets that aren't hedged. So, where if I lose, I actually lose. But there's something I got introduced to recently. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kabbalah. But it was actually like an ancient Jewish spiritual practice. And I kind of got introduced to it recently, and it's very spiritual, and it's just all about the guy always says, be like the light, and just don't worry, don't have worries of doubt or lack or whatever, all these kind of human emotions that kind of get in the way of us continuing to be the best version of ourselves or whatever. And so I'm always kind of reminded of that. Like, all right, these bets didn't go the right way, or like, oh, I'm very like, oh, why did they miss that or call this if I'm watching, And it's just like, you just gotta like relax and realize this is just part of it. You go on win streaks where you're like winning a lot, and then you go on losing streaks, and it's like, and you got to dig yourself out of it a little bit. But like, that's obviously if we all could get every bet right, then we'd all be rich. But
exactly. Don't you find that interesting though? That's applicable to every area of our life, right? It is. There are seasons we're going to get some wins, and there are going to be some seasons when we're going to get some losses. That's just part of life, right? I saw this round table before we wrap up and close. I saw this round table as you're talking through this of a lot of celebrities. Tom Hanks and a bunch of others were sitting around this table, talking, and I forget where it was going, but one of the key things that Tom Hanks was talking about is, it's like, hey, the season that you're navigating right now, the season where you're your ultimate lows and you think this is the rest of your life, this season shall too pass, right? Mm-hmm. Now, in the height, right, that season too shall pass, because unfortunately, a lot of people hang out in this season thinking that this is the rest of their life. Like this is how life should be in this heightened emotional state. It's like no. This too shall pass, right? Like we go through this seasons, these peaks and valleys, and that's just the human experience, right? And I love how you pointed it out, man, because we do need to keep our emotions in check. Yes, can we express ourselves? Sure, we should, right?
Yeah.
And real cool, I'll share something with you that I found really insightful from Leela Hormozi. I love a lot of her. In fact, a lot of her content she shares, I love.
Yeah, she's great.
But she talks about resiliency, not in the sense of just keep moving forward, right? Just keep moving forward, just keep getting hit and moving forward. But she shares it in an emotional perspective. How quick can you get to the equal state, right? You get delivered some amazing news, celebrate, cool. Let's get back to this equal state as fast as possible. You just got kicked in the nuts. All right, take a moment, wallow in your tears, whatever. Let's get back to equal state as fast as possible, right? So we can start thinking, because I'm sure you can agree, any decisions we make here and or here are rarely ever good. Maybe none of you never, right? So it's really critical to make sure we make these decisions in our equal state and get there as fast as possible. Because as you navigate it, as you notice in your other business, and through life, we're going to get kicked in the nuts, and I liked what you said. You follow the process. There is a process that you follow. You don't watch the scoreboard. You just follow the process. And so I think we've got to stick to that lesson. If that's one lesson I can extract from this, was you follow the process, and that's something we need to apply in all areas of our life if we want to excel in something. Because we're going to get kicked in the nuts. We're gonna have some amazing wins. But we've got to get to that equal state and keep moving forward. Focus on the process, not on a scoreboard. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to dive into what I call, it's kind of like a signature close, if you will, what I call the after action review. It's just a couple of closing things, because you shared the war stories, right? We've covered the war stories. You've shared some wounds and things you've been through, right? So as we rock this out, there is a question from a previous guest who, in his situation, he's kind of like right in the messy middle, and every guest, I'm going to inspire them with a question of, hey, if you're hosting this session, what would be the question you would want to ask my next guest, which I'll ask you here in a moment. But my previous guest had this question for you. When things got really deep for you, and you had a lot of fear, right? Like I said, you went through 3 years in Amazon, and you lost 15,000. You had this period of doubt, in your personal life, and just lostness, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when things got really deep for you and you had a lot of fear, the things that kept you up at night, what made you ignore that and keep pushing forward?
I think a lot of it is just like, you know, I mean, I feel like there is no other option, you know, like you just, I mean, you got to keep working on something. I mean, you got to keep working on yourself. You got to keep doing the just overall good habits, because like, what is the other option? Just giving up, just settling, just not even trying, like I don't want to be on my deathbed and be like, well, I never tried,
Ooh. Yes.
I never
Yes.
went for it,
Yes.
and I feel like that would eat at me like in old age, like being like, what? I just like
Ooh.
played it safe, and I never went all in on something.
Yeah. That's spot on, man. That's spot on.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, man. So, in this season, right? We all go through these different seasons. In this current season, what is your definition, especially as you're rebuilding and winning, right? What is your definition of grit right now? Like, what does grit mean for you?
Man, I think it's just always just continuing to focus on that, like that ideal like life, and taking those steps, like no matter what it is, and doing it without fear, without fear of failure, without I don't know, just like worry, without just doing it all from a good place, but doing it with like just doing it with I guess your all, and yeah, just don't give up on your dreams. Like don't ever think that like this is the best that it's going to get for me,
Agree.
So yeah, I guess it's and like try and figure it. I think that was something else I figured out with the essentialism thing, is like, what is it that you want to do, or like leave behind, or whatever. And I was, from my own experience, I kind of looked at like Jim Cockrum that way, where when I was lost, I was like, I kind of found a new path that was exciting for me, and it like gave me hope, and I started learning, and it was just like I was working towards something. And I learned a lot of like principles in that through like Jim Cockrum, and so he inspired me, and like a lot of people inspire me, that like you're someone that has inspired me through like this, all of the like people that you're helping. You've been through all of your business journey, and like, and now you're kind of like giving back and helping people like find that same like similar success. And now that's something that's become clear to me, is that I want to inspire people to do more with their lives.
Awesome.
Like find a better ideal, and don't waver from that,
I love
like
that.
always work towards it. And you're gonna figure out a lot of stuff about yourself and life in the process, and you're gonna become a better person, whether you ultimately get there or not.
It's the journey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's the journey that oftentimes we find ourselves too much in a rush to get to the destination, right? And really, just not even a destination. Success is not a destination, right? But we're always such in a rush that we fail to really, I say enjoy, but really to enjoy the journey, to take the lessons that we learn, good and bad, right? The relationships, the things that did not work out, the mistakes we made, and the wins, the losses. Like, that's part of the journey. That's part of the process to get to that next level, right? You know, you've got to learn to, you know, if you just, you know, if somebody gave you $1 million in your bank account, in the next couple of days, you'd be, you know, chances are that money would be gone, right?
Right.
However, if you worked towards that, you learned how to curate the $1 million by investing and investing yourself, investing into vehicles that were produced at, and all of this stuff. That, you know, you're going to be a better steward of that, right? Better steward of your talents, your story, you know, everything you've been, you know, given. So love that, man. So for especially in this later season I'm in, you know, we've always been talking about adding things, right? Adding new systems, new plans, new processes, new habits, new something. But let's go on the opposite side of the realm. What is something that you're working towards to eliminate? It could be a belief, it could be a point of friction, it could be you know, behavior. What is something you're actively trying to eliminate, to stop doing? Because a lot of people are working to add, right? But what is it that you are working to remove or to stop doing in the season of life?
That's a good question. I think that's kind of like one of my goals, like something that I've been doing decently well with the sports betting is just like getting people to join it, just referring people to it. And, you know, the program has a really good like affiliate system. And so I'm building a decent like passive income through that. Nice. And I feel like that is the goal through this. You know, I don't necessarily want to bet for like 1 to 2, sometimes 3 hours a day, every day, forever. Because, you know, I do got to find balance with all this stuff.
Agree.
So like, I guess that's something that I'm sort of working on creating my own sort of coaching program. Awesome. with the around the betting, and so that's kind of, that all is kind of a way to eventually slow down on the betting and just help other people do it, and kind of, you know, free up a little bit more of my time. So yeah, I'd say that's something that I'm trying to slowly remove.
Gotcha.
But right now I need to show people like I can make money for a while doing this. Because that'll help, you know, the numbers kind of sell themselves.
Yeah, I agree. Once you get that tangible proof and get case studies, and, you know, because everybody wants to see proof in the pudding, which I can agree. So cool, man. All right, so for all the Teds out there, right, that are listening to you talk, that have been listening to you for probably an hour now, that are fighting a similar fire, or similar fires, right? What do you say to that person to keep them moving forward? Like, if you're coaching them right now, that's navigating what you've already been navigating or currently navigating, what do you say to that person in the next 60, 90 seconds? What do you say to that person to keep moving forward?
You know, don't quit, find a way, trust the process, you know, do what the training has told you, and just keep moving forward and stay level-headed. And yeah, like I said, trust the process. You know, there's ups and downs. But, you know, you got no other option besides to keep going.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You know, so if I understand correctly, there is a brighter path forward, right? There is another future for out there. This season that they're navigating right now, while it may be in the thick, it may be, you know, not pleasant, but keep pushing forward, because this season too shall pass, right? Just for you, you know, you kept pushing forward because you believed, you had absolute conviction in your heart that this was meant for you. You just gotta keep pushing forward because, like a snake, right? We shed this skin of ours of our old past, whether it's yesterday's past, it's last month's past, last week's. We shed that skin, right, so we can get to the next level of growth. You know what I mean? That's awesome, man. So as we wrap up, as we are building a chain of iron, right? Because my last guest asked you a question. So, what would be the one question that you would love to challenge the next guest with?
So I was kind of thinking of this as a question for me, and I really didn't know how to answer it. And so I'm going to challenge the next person with it. But I feel like there's a moment in like every entrepreneur's like childhood that like made them want to be, successful or have their own thing and have them be the only thing that gets in their way kind of thing. And them like they can control their own like success and everything, whatever, all the stuff that entrepreneurs like about entrepreneurship. But like, what was it in your, I guess it doesn't have to be your childhood, but what was it in your life that really like made you feel like there was no other way but this,
I like that. That's a good question, man. Thanks for sharing it. Can't reveal who the guest is, but you'll find out, if you tune in. So, but no, that's a good question, man. That's a good thought-provoking question. That's a deep one. So, thanks for sharing that, man. So, Ted, man, I appreciate you getting real today, man, because most people, you will hide behind all this, all the mistakes, the messy ones, right? Losing money, periods of things that we've done that we're not proud of, like infidelity and things that we've done, right? And a lot of people would hide behind that, but you chose to put it out there. You chose to put it out there, and I respect that, man, because a lot of people can learn from this, because a lot of people tend to carry that guilt, that shame because of the things they've done. They feel like they're disqualified from success, right? They're disqualified from this next version. They're disqualified from a good relationship, a good business, a fulfilled, meaningful life, man. So you putting it out there, I truly hope and pray that this inspires other people that there's no difference. They too can have the same happiness and joy that you're experiencing, right? So that being said, where can people find you? Because I know people are going to be like, where can I find out more about this sports betting? Where can I find out more about Ted's story so I can follow his success? Where can they find you, my man?
So I put it on my little whiteboard here, even though it's backwards.
It is. Sneaky.
But yeah, on Instagram, it's Ted_bets. And then if you want to learn a little bit more about sports betting, I've got a website, teddybets.com. You can find me on Facebook, Ted Harton. But yeah, I would love to hear, if anyone listened to this or wants to, if you were inspired, especially because as I told you, I live for that shit. So I would love to hear it. But yeah, reach out, say hi. I'd be happy to talk to you about anything and how we're all just people on this earth trying to figure it out. And
amen.
we can all live our best lives if we just forgive ourselves and go for it.
I love that. Yes, forgive ourselves. Yes. I hope everybody just heard what you just said right there. Forgive ourselves. Well, awesome, my man. Well, thanks for sharing, your handle and the ways that people can find you. I will link all of that in the show notes. So, Ted, thank you again for stepping into the arena today. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Karl. You're the man. I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll hopefully talk soon.
My pleasure, my man. We don't grow just by listening. We grow by doing. The gap between average and excellence is just action, even imperfect action. My challenge to you today is simple. Take one specific tool or insight from this conversation with Ted. Maybe it's the hedge strategy. Maybe it's the courage to look in the mirror. Use it in the next 24 hours. Do not wait to feel ready. Action creates the feeling. Remember, you are one decision, one habit, and one moment of grit away from a completely different life. But you cannot build a life of substance alone. If this episode added value to your life, do the unseen work of a leader and share it. Text this link to one friend or team member who needs to hear this message today. Be the catalyst for their growth. I believe in you, and I'll see you for the next rep. Let's get after it.